Hello everyone, I would like to welcome you at home and from around the world to the Diaspora Notebook with me, your host, Chris Omalwa. In this show, every week we will be bringing you special features on news, issues and events that are making headlines within the diaspora community. Welcome. Nobody understands the potential that Kenyans living abroad possess that could help accelerate development in Kenya better than the immediate former Kenyan ambassador to the US, Mr. Ondoro.
My sincere belief is that this diaspora here in America has a tremendous potential. I don't think we've even started scratching the surface of it. People keep talking about the remittances, $1 billion every year. I think that's compared to what this diaspora is capable of doing. Chris, if you look at the numbers and you work with sort of minimum wage types of numbers and the numbers of Kenyans that are in America, my estimates are that the kind of income that Kenyans in America earn in a year are to the tune of about $5 billion US dollars. Kenya's national budget for this year is about 14 billion. So that tells you just how serious this diaspora is, and therefore the potential that it has. And that's just, we are talking about income, not to mention the levels of education, the expertise, the technical research, knowledge, expertise that exists within this diaspora, experiences that exist, which if harnessed can just do incredible things in Kenya. So that really is what we need to work towards.
Even though the term diaspora in most cases brings to mind remittances, that is, money that Kenyans living abroad send home to help their families, Mr. Ondoro knows that remittances are indeed just a tip of the iceberg.
The good Professor Ali Mazrui captured it very well when he said we are, as a nation, as a country, as a society, on the verge of a renaissance, and that in this renaissance the diaspora has, particularly the diaspora in the United States, in America here, has the chance to really make a difference. I truly believe that. Looking at the people who are here, the interactions that I've had with them, the incredible skills and expertise and resources that are here, I think some kind of leadership can actually originate from here. They don't have to go to Kenya to provide that leadership. And I keep saying, and I'll repeat, that the diaspora in America should consider themselves, think of themselves as the 48th county. And if they were the 48th county, what would they do differently to make an impact in Kenya? And they have all that it takes to make a really significant difference in the development of Kenya. And so my plea to them is that they actualize that potential.
The diaspora contributes to the home country's economic development in a number of ways. At an individual level, immigrants contribute by transferring direct financial capital to their home country in the form of remittances. by also returning home as skilled workers, by investing in home country's business development in the form of foreign direct investment, by funding home country's entrepreneurs, and by participating in knowledge networks that seek to transfer skills. But given the negative praise that the diaspora has had in the recent past, especially in the Kenyan media concerning the hardships that they are going through as they search for a better life abroad, the question then becomes, do the diaspora really have the capacity to change Kenya?
On an average, the Kenyan diaspora makes more money. Their average income is higher than maybe any other group of Kenyans, even in Kenya. Expect maybe the top 2% of Kenyans.
It could be true, but again, of course, that is open to debate. The most important question, however, will be, how tangible is their investment portfolio in the country?
Okay, one of the areas that Kenyan in diaspora are investing heavily is real estate. If you look at the real estate market in Kenya, in every maybe area of the city or all the cities in Kenya, you'll find that some of the biggest investments are from Kenyans abroad. I was very surprised when I was touring Kiambu and I went to places like Banana and surrounding areas that I found out there's a lot of new apartment complexes, and most of these, when I inquired, I was told that they're being built by people either in United Kingdom or other areas like United States. And the fact that Kenyans can invest in this sector is up to the government to guarantee that their investments are going to be safe.
Foreign direct investment and financial remittances by immigrants living abroad have increased dramatically during the past few decades and now constitute a major source of development finance. In fact, in Kenya, their contributions rank third after tourism, tea, coffee, and flour importation.
The biggest myth is that the diaspora alone can build a country, but they can be an essential part to building a country and helping Kenya show up its foreign exchange reserves and investments. The fact is that last year alone, Kenyans in diaspora remitted to Kenya 65 billion Kenyan shillings. One of the arguments with a lot of economists out there is that these monies that are sent by Kenyans in diaspora usually end up being social welfare type of money. They are spent by their families to buy things like grocery, pay for education, pay for hospital bills, and other bills that come along. One of the suggestions is that these monies should be channeled to long-term investments that can help Kenya grow.
Experts have argued that the diaspora investment at home will increase tenfold if only the government will guarantee security and issues of integrity, transparency, and accountability were resolved.
Yeah, one of the things that the Kenyan in diaspora expects is that when they invest their money in Kenya, that there will be integrity in the process, that they are not going to lose their money because of either the people that they entrust their investments to making bad decisions or defrauding them of the money. The other thing is that they will look at the cost of them transferring their investments to Kenya.
That is the end of the first part of our show. We're going to take a small break, and when we come back, we'll take you to Toronto, Canada, where we join the Kenyan community living in Ontario, Canada. Welcome back to the second part of the show. In this part, we're going to continue with our discussion with Mr. Elkan Odembo, who is the immediate former Kenyan ambassador to the US. But before that, we sit down with Mr. Ben Ondoro. Mr. Ondoro is the chairman of the Kenyan community in Ontario, and he gives us a sense of what life is in Canada.
Hatutaki hata kamwe, lazima tuungane, tuijenge nchi yetu, pasiwe hata mmoja anayetenganisha. Naishi natumaini, najitolea daima Kenya, hakika ya bendera ni uthabiti wangu.
Our resilience in the face of it inspires our gathering today. Our hearts bleed in anguish. Our prayers bellow for the citizens, international friends, and soldiers of courage who have lost their lives standing up to a threat to tear us apart, and for the healing of all the injured and for our country at large. Our inexplicable gratitude beams at the countless heroes who have selflessly and wholeheartedly defended the land that gave us life and the land that continues to nourish our souls. Today, Kenyans in Ontario and in Canada, in our expression of solidarity with our brothers and sisters in our homeland, demonstrate to the world that we cannot be terrorized, and we will not be separated along any lines, religion, culture, or otherwise.
Further afield in Toronto, Canada, Kenyans living in this city have just wrapped up an emotional community meeting in which they were able to show in no uncertain terms that even though they live thousands of miles away, what happens in their motherland affects them deeply.
Your presence today, for your warmth, your love, for creating an atmosphere of togetherness, of solidarity, and let's do whatever we can to keep the Kenyan community, the East African community in Ontario, keep the voice of the diaspora alive and engaged. And let's continue to come together to make sure that we're holding the Kenyan government, and we're holding that to let them know that we have a voice. The diaspora does have a voice, and that as Kenyans living abroad, they are as much accountable to us as they are to people at home. And in that togetherness, no mass of land or no body of water separates our hearts from the hearts of our Kenyan brothers and sisters at home.
Thank you, Chris, for having me. My name is Ben Ondoro. I'm the president of the Kenyan community in Ontario, Canada. It's a role I've played since 2006. Well, as we all know, the Westgate attack in Nairobi, Kenya is something that touches on the lives of many Kenyans abroad. So many of us here in Canada and even the US have lost their loved ones back home in Kenya. So the gathering was sort of to bring the community together so we can support one another and also show to the Kenyan people that we are in solidarity with them, even as the country is trying to heal from all this.
Even after living away from home for most of his adult life, Benson Ondoro is still as Kenyan as they come. Like many other Kenyans living abroad, Ondoro has managed to create two worlds for himself, one in Kenya and another one in the country where he lives.
Well, basically, you know that we have families back home. Majority of us still have extended family members back home. We support our family members back home. If you look at even Kenyan, the economy of Kenya in general, the Kenyans in diaspora drive the economy because of the money that we send back home. And I can tell you, Chris, I probably know a lot about Kenya more than some Kenyans who live in Kenya, because I follow on the news all the time. I follow on the politics of Kenya. I follow on a lot of things that are going on in Kenya. So even though we are far away from home, our hearts, our minds are still back home because Kenya is our country. We love it.
Just like millions of other Kenyans living away from home in other parts of the world, national calamities like this become an occasion for them not only to come together to pledge their loyalty to the Kenyan flag, but also to express their solidarity with the people of Kenya.
Well, I think what we can do as a community actually living abroad is to be able to invest back home. Investment is a big piece of driving Kenya's economy, and this is something that we need to do. Another thing, I think the Kenyan government need to reach out to the diaspora community, because we have a major role to play in driving Kenya's economy to have it grow. So we have a lot of Kenyan professionals here, and some of the talents that we have out here, if the Kenyan government can tap into it, I think that can help our country grow as well. But above all, we are all Kenyans. Kenya is our home. So the words of encouragement I have for Kenyans who are living abroad is that Kenya is a good country. It is our country, and we need to put a lot more effort in investing back home.
Considering how top government officials have behaved in the past when it comes to the diaspora, it's quite clear that the government of Kenya either does not adequately understand or appreciate the role that the diaspora could play in national development. Or maybe the government just doesn't care.
The diaspora, as you know, even within the African Union, the diaspora is regarded as part of the AU constituency. The Kenya foreign policy, and if you look at the policy framework, and if you look at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs strategic plan, it is very clear that the diaspora is a significant part of Kenya's efforts to achieve that which we are looking to achieve, for example, in Vision 2030. So for me, the diaspora must be seen and part and parcel of a constituency, a very important and a critical constituency that must be mobilized, that must take its responsibility very seriously, but for whom there is now an opportunity under this new constitution. If we see the constitution as part of the infrastructure that now enables all Kenyans, including diaspora, to engage in the development of the nation.
One of the government's glaring failures is the lack of goodwill needed to involve the diaspora in political dispensation. Kenyans living abroad are still smarting from the government's last-minute decision to lock out majority of them from voting in the last elections. And given the manner in which the electronic kits initially cited as vote rigging foolproof spectacularly failed, many are wondering what happens next.
Well, yeah, I think even me, I was disappointed, because I remember when the chairman of the CSC, Mr. Charles Nyachai, came to Toronto. This is one of the things that we brought up with him, because we wanted Kenyans in diaspora wanted to vote, Kenyans in Canada wanted to vote, but when we were told that that part of the constitution was going to be implemented progressively, and there was a chance that we were not going to vote, it was very disappointing. And then when it came to voting time, we were not allowed to vote, so I think it was disappointed. What the government need to do is put good measures in place in good time, so come next elections, all Kenyans in diaspora are able to vote without any problem.
Debate is rife among the diaspora, both for and against the reasons given by the Kenyan courts, the IEBC and the government as to why majority of them were not facilitated to vote in the last general elections. most arguments for and against are valid. The question, however, is what is it that either the government or the diaspora groups are doing to make sure that these issues are resolved before the next elections? Henry Nzenga, please welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
But it's my pleasure to speak with you again. We spoke soon after the elections. Give us your sense of how did you feel when the diaspora was not able to vote?
I think, as I had stated earlier on, not being able to vote was something that me personally, and I believe other Kenyans who live outside the country, felt bad about. We were not very happy about the situation, and we were hoping that we would have been able to participate in that very simple democratic process as part of our right. So very disappointed, but we did agree that the structures were not well laid, but I think we are okay with it, and just glad that the elections were peaceful, and we had a nice transition, and we are ready to move on and see what else happens.
Upon taking office, President Uhuru Kenyatta had indicated that he understood the role that the Kenyan diaspora played in national development and pledged to create a diaspora desk in his office. Even though he made some movements towards this by creating a diaspora unit under his communications department, many people in the diaspora hope this is not what he initially had in mind. This is certainly not enough for such an important constituency.
No, setting a diaspora desk is not adequate. There is need for more than that to be done, and much as we applaud the president for agreeing that he wants to look into the issues of the people in diaspora, just establishing a desk in his office is not enough. There will need to be more involvement by the president, and also everybody else who is involved in the government. And there are so many things that people in diaspora need to be heard and represented, other than just having a desk at the president's office. And more than that, Mr. Wamalwa, I think there is also another element that I'm concerned about. In the element of how he chooses who are going to be in the diaspora desk, there needs to be a rationale which has to be used in terms of identifying the right people who should be in that desk or that particular office.
Several months after the controversial general elections in Kenya, there is still evidence that Kenyans living abroad, just like their compatriots back at home, are also divided down the middle. Even though the visible antagonism that was openly exhibited during the Bengal 2007 and 8 elections are absent now, it is believed that the diaspora is even more divided now than ever. While some have moved on, the rest are still standing where the train left them. Again, you know, like you said, now the call is let's move on. There are definitely still tensions. We got this sense when Raila was around recently, there are many people who are not ready to move. What's your view about that?
I think for every democratic institution that we have in the world, there is an element for people not feeling accommodated by elections, even though they were free and fair. And again, the concept of free and fair is only at times rest on the hands of the person who feels they lost or won in the election. So part of what I part of what I believe in excuse me, part of what I believe in is that we have to agree as a nation to move forward.
One of the reasons why we were not able to vote is because the diaspora were not organized as a group to present one voice. Again, just talking about the elections are going to be here very soon. What do you think the diaspora can do between now and then to make sure that, you know, we put in place systems that will make it easy now for the diaspora to vote?
I think, as I had indicated in the previous interview that I had with you, there are two elements that I will be very concerned about, even as we gear towards the next election, general election, which is days have already gone. So we are really looking into the next general election. Part of what I'm looking into is IEBC should be looking into how it's going to address the issue of why we were unable to vote. Now there is enough time to adequately plan, get the resources that are needed, and make sure that all those pieces that need to be put in place are put in place. And then the government too. The government has a lot of stake in it, in this, and they have to make sure that they not only get to have the institutions, other institutions participating, but the government has to be on the forefront of making sure that the extra person that lives outside the country has a chance to vote. And we need to have this done. In the Constitution, it says that voting will be by people living outside the country, or rather now known as those in diaspora. It indicates that it's going to be done progressively. There has to be moves that will be made by the government and others to show us what they are doing. What does that progressive mean? That is the key thing about making sure that the Kenyans in diaspora do participate in the next election, whenever they're going to be coming. You never know. A general election, I mean, you know, another election could take place. You never know. You know, I think things should be looked into progressively, but they need to show us what they are doing for us to be able to adequately know that they are working on that agenda. It's very important for us in diaspora.
In terms of the role of the diaspora in safeguarding the Constitution, I already prepared a presentation which perhaps the embassy will share with you, so I will only make a statement on it. I think that your role in safeguarding in the Constitution is to protect the Constitution, to promote constitutionalism, and to participate in constitutional processes. Protect the Constitution first, because we delivered a Constitution, and right now we are talking about Article 82, the right of the diaspora to vote, and we are all taking it for granted that therefore we have that right. Let me assure you, and Ikuru is here, that even in Article 82, which uses the word progressive, why does Article 82 say there will be progressive implementation? It is because when we were writing the Constitution, the members of Parliament did not want to hear anything about Kenyans living abroad. And I can assure you that while initially the word progressive was not there, when it went to them, they deleted the idea of anybody living abroad participating in elections at all. Perhaps they feared that some of you are going to compete for the offices. I don't know. But the only reason, therefore, the only way to save it were two ways. One was to put the word progressive, so that in meeting with them, we tell them, we are not talking immediately, we are, you know, talking futuristic. But then quickly, to draw, you know, to take away the attention from Article 83.3, which now says that whatever administrative procedures are put in place must facilitate your voting rather than deny you, which they didn't see therefore. And that is to say that the word progressive in Article 82 by itself cannot be used as a weapon to deny Kenyans living abroad the right to vote, because it's secured elsewhere. But that was the context, and that is why it had to be so. But why am I saying that? The truth of the matter is that even though in public the leadership in Kenya promoted the idea of the new constitution, in private and in all the sessions we had with most of them, they didn't want those provisions. And if you go to sleep, they will go to Parliament, they will amend Article 82, and you will not have a right to vote at all, leave alone where.
I can only urge the diaspora to ask themselves a very simple question. Given where Kenya wants to go, we now have a Vision 2030. I would encourage diaspora to look at it, to examine it, and to internalize it. This is Kenya's vision. This is where Kenya wants to be 20 years from now. We want to be a middle-income country. Diaspora must ask themselves, each and every one of us who is out in the diaspora must ask themselves, what is it? What is the role that I can play in being a part of the solution, in being a part of the effort to achieve the Vision 2030.
Viewers, that's all we had for you today. We hope you enjoyed the show. Join us again next week as we tackle the issue of the changing faces of the diaspora. See you next week.